the choice between a disgraced former governor and a vision for change.
This unprecedented New York City mayoral race with potential history-making results. Democratic nominee Zohran Mamdani leading the polls, so much so, there are calls for one of his challengers to leave the race.
Whether it's Curtis Lewa and Andrew Cuomo running against me on November 4th, or it's just Andrew Cuomo, the result's going to be the same. We're going to win.
The self-proclaimed socialist sticking to the cornerstone of his campaign, affordability, free buses, and freezing the rent.
How long will this take? What is the deadline you're giving yourself?
As the next mayor, by the time that I am done being the mayor of this city, this will be a reality.
The race, a focus of President Donald Trump, who just recently opened the door of communication.
Will you meet with Mamdani if he wins?
Yeah, I'll speak to him.
And now with the election just over a week away, Zohran Mamdani goes on the record.
This is a special edition of PIX on Politics with Dan Mannarino. Race for New York City Mayor. One-on-one with the candidates.
And welcome to a special edition of PIX on Politics, everybody. I'm Dan Mannarino. So here we are in this third and final part of our series, the race for New York City Mayor. I'm sitting down with the Democratic nominee, Zohran Mamdani. And Mr. Mamdani is joining me now, so great to have you back.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.
Moments ago, right before you sat down in this chair, Eric Adams, the current mayor, endorsed Andrew Cuomo. And I want to read you a quote of what he said. "I think it is imperative to really wake up black and brown communities that have suffered from gentrification on how important this race is." I want to get your reaction to the endorsement.
You know, I said 1 year ago today when we launched this campaign that it was time for New Yorkers to have a mayor who wasn't a disgraced executive. And that means to bring an end to the chapter of Eric Adams and also to the person that he's endorsing, Andrew Cuomo. Because Andrew Cuomo's agenda is Eric Adams' record. When Andrew Cuomo looks at Eric Adams having raised the rent by more than 12%, raised the water bill to the highest it's been in 13 years, supported Con Ed when they wanted to raise gas and electric by $65 a month, that's what he wants to show New Yorkers as his agenda. And I am putting forward an agenda that will actually make the most expensive city in the United States one that's affordable. And amidst all of this, we also have to ask the question about the art of the deal, because we know that Donald Trump wants to have Andrew Cuomo as the next mayor of the city. It's Donald Trump that was pushing Eric Adams to get out of this race, and it may have been Donald Trump who had also been behind the question of trying to consolidate these two into one candidacy.
Also this morning, right before you sat down here, on Sid Rosenberg's radio show, your opponent Andrew Cuomo said this, quote, "God forbid another 9/11. Can you imagine Mamdani in the seat?" End quote. Rosenberg responded by saying he'd be cheering. Andrew Cuomo said, quote, "That's another problem." I want to get your reaction.
This is disgusting. This is Andrew Cuomo's final moments in public life, and he's choosing to spend them making racist attacks on the person who would be the first Muslim to lead this city. And frankly, it's not about me. It's about the fact that there are more than 1 million Muslims who live in New York City. And to have our faith be smeared and slandered by someone who at one point was considered a leader in the Democratic Party showcases the fact that bigotry and racism is not exclusively a Republican problem. It is also a problem within our own party. And it is time that we turn the page on Andrew Cuomo and those that would tolerate this kind of rhetoric from him as well.
Yeah, I can hear the passion and emotion in your voice. It's personal for you.
It is. I mean, to describe myself and describe Muslims in this manner, it begs the question of why this kind of rhetoric is acceptable when we're speaking about Muslim New Yorkers. Because all Muslim New Yorkers want is to feel a sense of equality and respect that every New Yorker deserves. And even that is being denied by the former governor.
Let's talk about it. You're here the day after the second and final debate. The big moment from the debate happened really right before and then during, which was you deciding to keep Jessica Tisch as your police commissioner, citing the reduction of crime and the job that she is doing. Andrew Cuomo on the debate stage said, "I don't believe that you're actually going to ask her." So have you actually spoken to her? Have you had a conversation with her about staying on?
I've had conversations with her in public. I spoke to her over the phone after the murder of Detective Diderul Islam. And I made my decision clear to New Yorkers in public. And it doesn't matter to Andrew Cuomo whatever I say next to him, because he will always continue with his own opinions that he tries to paint as facts. The reason I've made that decision is because I want my government to be characterized by excellence. And Eric Adams stacked the upper echelons of the NYPD with corruption and incompetence. Commissioner Tisch took on that broken status quo, started to root out corruption, deliver accountability, reduce crime, and that is exactly what we would build upon in my administration, and do so while delivering the Department of Community Safety to ensure that police officers have to do the work of police work, not that of mental health response.
But have you actually had the conversation with her about her staying on, and did she give you an answer?
I have not spoken to Jessica Tisch about this specific position.
Do you think she wants to stay on?
I'm confident. that the commissioner wants to.
The reason I ask about if you're confident she will is because fundamentally you differ from her on a couple of things. You want to get rid of the strategic response group, she wants to keep it. You want to raise the age, she wants to keep it. She wants big changes to bail reform, she wants more police officers. So the question is, how can you fundamentally choose someone on such an important issue to a New Yorker, public safety, that you differ from?
You know, it is important to actually surround yourself with those who aren't just characterized by the quickness with which they say yes to any one of your ideas. And I'm also making this decision to deliver my agenda. This is a decision that will be part of delivering the Department of Community Safety, will be part of ensuring that we do not have the strategic response group responding to protests, that will be delivering a vision of safety and justice. And I'm confident the commissioner will be doing that alongside me, because this is a commissioner who's made clear time and again her focus is on safety, her focus is on delivering for New Yorkers.
She has said, though, that she would like more police officers. Are you satisfied with the current number of officers that are on the force, or would you hire more?
I've said time and again that I am satisfied with the number that we have in the NYPD, and what we need to ensure is that those officers are asked to do the work of police officers, because what we also have amidst a conversation around headcount is a conversation around a retention crisis, where we have today 350 officers leaving the department every month. When I started running, it was only 200.
Yeah, but again, this is something that she differs from you on. She says to be successful in what she would like to accomplish, she wants to hire more officers. So with attrition, retirements, are you saying no new hires?
No, what I'm saying is we keep the number of hires that we have budgeted right now.
So not an additional 5 or 7,000. So right now we're at 33 to 34. She wants more. You're going to tell her no.
I've said the same thing throughout this entire campaign. Continues to be the case.
Another big moment in the campaign came from about these ballot initiatives. And for those who don't know, who are watching at home, it can get murky, right? And so let me just do a quick explainer. It's expediting the building of affordable housing. If passed, power would shift from the council to the mayor on housing and zoning. Most of the city council, including the speaker, are opposed to this. You have said you haven't taken a position yet, but early voting is this weekend. So are you going to take a position before this weekend? Do you have a position now?
So I always want to be direct and honest with New Yorkers, which is the fact that I haven't yet taken a position on these initiatives. And the reason for that is I want to be held to the things that I actually speak up on. And I'm going through conversations because this is a referendum that has immense implications. We need to desperately build more housing across New York City. And there's also the question that the jobs that we create in building that housing also need to be good jobs. And that's why I'm taking my time before coming to a decision as to how to not only inform my own ballot, but that of New Yorkers as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to ask this respectfully, but are you not taking a position because you don't want to alienate, say, the city council, who many of them support you, and this would take power away from them and give it to you?
No, the reason I haven't come to a decision yet is because I have yet to come to a decision, not because of who I'm looking to placate.
So this obviously would change how you go about your affordable housing plan, right? It could talk about expediting it or not. So have you looked at the proposals and understand them? Because again, for a New Yorker who's looking to their candidate, saying, well, how is he voting? I want to follow how he's voting. They may be going this weekend to the ballot. How should they vote?
Look, I've looked at these proposals, and what these proposals speak about is the potential for expediting construction and also a changing of the process, which is the same process where many unions will actually be able to get far greater numbers of union jobs in the production of that same housing. That's what we're having to balance here between so many of these different parts of the same housing crisis. That's why I haven't yet come to a determination.
So do you think you will before early voting, in full disclosure?
I can't tell you the moment I'll come to it, but I can tell you that this is something that I'm deeply invested in.
Okay. Again, without you taking a position on those measures then, how quickly could you get your affordable housing agenda done? At the end of year one of a Mamdani administration, how many new houses have you built? Yeah,
I've said that we're going to build 200,000 homes over the next 10 years, and we're going to do that in the public sector while also ensuring that we make it easier for the private sector. So we haven't yet put an exact unit amount for 12 months, but we've put it for 10 years, and that's because New Yorkers deserve far more housing than they have.
I don't mean to harp on this, but do you think you'll have a position before Election Day?
On which
ballot
question?
Measures?
That's something that I will actually be sharing, yes.
Okay.
Before I vote, when I vote, people will know how I voted.
Okay. A big part of your plan to get your agenda done, we've talked about this, is to raise taxes on the wealthy, something that the governor has actually opposed. Have you had conversations with Governor Hochul, and do you plan on campaigning with her?
I've spoken with the governor a number of times, and I appreciate not only her support, but also the ways in which she's been leading our state. And the conversations that we've had have focused on two things: the crisis of authoritarianism and Donald Trump, who's been seeking to attack our city and state at almost every opportunity, and the affordability crisis within. And one place of real shared urgency and focus is on the question of universal child care. And I've appreciated the governor's commitment and work towards that goal, and I'm looking forward to being a partner in delivering that for New Yorkers.
Will you be campaigning with her?
For November?
For your election, yes.
Yes, absolutely.
When?
We've already been doing so, standing alongside each other, and we'll continue to be standing alongside each other over these next 2 weeks.
Yeah, now you brought up November, so that's going to, you've made me want to ask the question now. Past November, do you support her?
You know, the governor hasn't yet asked for my endorsement. I've appreciated the partnership that we're building, and I look forward to speaking with her beyond November.
A big theme in your campaign and in the debate that you have been facing from your opponents has been about your experience, or your opponents say lack thereof, right? Andrew Cuomo last night said, quote, "You have never proposed a bill that you are discussing right now." And we're seeing that resonate with some voters. We put the call out on Facebook, Instagram, X to ask you questions. A lot of them wondering who you will surround yourself. They believe in you, but they want to know who you'll surround yourself with. Jessica Tisch being one of them. Do you have other names that you'd like to say? First deputy mayor, for example?
No, that's the only commitment that I've made on personnel is keeping Commissioner Tisch.
There are these rumors, I'm sure you've seen the reporting, that you're looking at names, Dan Grodnick, Mira Joshi. Are those accurate?
No, I haven't, not only not paying attention to the reporting, but I haven't made any personnel commitments beyond it. But I think to the questions that New Yorkers are asking, time and again, the answer will be the same. I'm going to surround myself by the best and the brightest, and also those whose experience spans not only generations, but multiple mayoral administrations, because it's critical to deliver on an agenda as ambitious as ours, that we have those who are best suited to actually doing that work. That's who we're going to build this admin with.
You know, it was an interesting moment last night about ranked choice voting in this election, which does not exist, but you said you would put yourself number one, Curtis Lee would number two. Both of the other opponents said they would just rank themselves. But it really begs the question, would you offer Curtis Lee a job? Do you see a space in your administration for him if you win?
I have no plans of offering him a job. That's not why I said that. The reason I said that I would actually include him on my ballot is I want to include people on the ballot who love this city. And I can tell you of the 3 people, it often feels like just 2 on that debate stage actually love New York.
Last time I spoke to you, you said that your number one opponent was actually President Trump, who just this week said it looks like we're going to have a communist for mayor. Now, we've seen him send the National Guard agents to other cities, including Portland. They've tried to stop it. It has failed. At the debate, Andrew Cuomo said if you win, Donald Trump will be Mayor Trump. So what can you do to stand up against President Trump in an issue about ICE coming into the city, so on and so forth? Or is it inevitable?
Look, we have to understand that his threats are inevitable. The question is how we actually respond to them. And Andrew Cuomo is too busy cashing checks from Donald Trump's billionaire donors to actually formulate a plan to respond. When Donald Trump sent ICE agents into Los Angeles, Andrew Cuomo told New Yorkers to not overreact. We're now seeing those same tactics be used right here in New York City, with ICE agents being sent to Canal Street to brutalize street vendors. And we have to ask ourselves, who will be best positioned to respond to this? And my plan will be to ensure that we defend New Yorkers' rights, that we work with our Attorney General, with our governor, to actually have a unified response.
How?
And not, sorry?
How?
Because what we will use is the courts, right? We've seen in California, the governor, the attorney general, the mayor came together. They put a lawsuit forward that a federal judge found in their favor that the deployment of the National Guard was illegal. And the attorney general there has found that for every dollar they spend on legal fees, they've recovered more than $30,000 in federal funds that would have otherwise been stripped of them. What we have here right now is a crisis of leadership. And Andrew Cuomo today has accepted the endorsement of a mayor who has sought to have the greatest amount of collaboration possible with the Trump administration, all to save his own skin. That's the kind of politics they have on offer. How to sacrifice the people you're supposed to serve to keep yourself out of jail.
And I want to talk about the Canal Street raids in a second, but in the same comments that President Trump was talking about, calling you a communist, he said, I think I have an obligation to speak with him. And it seemed like he was open to having this dialogue with you if you were to win. So you win, right? What happens? You pick up the phone. What's the first conversation with Donald Trump? What are you asking for?
I'm asking him to work together to deliver on reducing the cost of living. And I'm asking that because that's one of the key points that he ran on when he became the president of this country. How to make groceries cheaper, how to actually make it easier to afford life in this city and in this country. If he wants to work together on that, I will be ready from day one. But if he wants to spend his time instead persecuting his political enemies and creating the single largest deportation force in American history, then I will be there to fight him every single step of the way on
Do you think he'd be open to the conversations about what you discussed?
I think there's a possibility for it, and I always leave the door open to anyone that I'm speaking to if they want to work together to help this city. And that's why in this campaign, I haven't just been speaking to Democrats. I've been speaking to independents, Republicans, unaffiliated voters, because the affordability crisis affects all of us. It's bad for every single New Yorker. And so it's time to have a politics that's open to working with everyone.
And more with Mr. Mamdani when we come back. We're back in 2 minutes.
You're watching PIX on Politics with Dan Mannarino. Race for New York City Mayor.
Welcome back, everybody. Continuing my conversation with Mr. Mamdani, and he is here. Great to have you back.
Thank you so much for having me.
So we talked about the raids and what played out in Canal Street in Lower Manhattan, right, with these ICE raids. I spoke to public advocate Jumaane Williams this week, who said he wants the next mayor to really focus in on the issue, which was illegal street vending. I heard you say you want to pass legislation to decriminalize street vending, but does it actually address the problem of what you're seeing? Decriminalizing, yes, but would those street vendors still be out there, which many New Yorkers see as a nuisance?
So there are actually 4 pieces of legislation that we have to pass through the city council. And what those 4 pieces would do is not just the decriminalizing of street vending, it would also increase the permits that we give out. Because what we have in this city right now is a system of chaos that the city is aiding and abetting. The city is refusing to issue the permits it's legally allowed to do so. What that does is force vendors to either vend illegally or to pay a middleman upwards of $20,000 for the right to vend. So when that vendor could be paying the city $400, they're instead paying a guy $25,000 just to be able to sell chicken and rice. That's the system that we have in the city. That's what's broken. That's why we have to pass that entire package.
Right, but if you pass that, should those people who are selling counterfeit goods or stolen merchandise, would they be taken into custody? Should they be allowed to do that on the street?
We should be able to actually enforce our street vending rules without having ICE come in and throw people against the wall. I don't even think that this has to be a quality of life concern for the NYPD. I think this more has to do with the bureaucracy of City Hall.
Some elected leaders like Congressman Dan Goldman pointed to wanting the police commissioner to go ahead and arrest ICE agents who are breaking the law. So would you direct your police commissioner to do so if you saw what played out like we did see this week? And what if police officers did not follow the order?
My focus is on ensuring rule of law in this city, and what we've seen from ICE is that they are a reckless entity, one that cares little for the rule of law and even less for the people they're supposed to serve. And I very much agree with the words that have been shared by other Democratic leaders across this country, including Governor Pritzker, which is the fact that no one is above the law, whether that be these ICE agents or whether that be Donald Trump. Everyone should be held to account for it.
So should the NYPD go ahead and arrest them if they're breaking the law, the ICE agents?
If anyone is breaking the law, then they should be held to account. That includes ICE agents as well.
All right. Last night during the debate on the education front, mayoral control came up once again. It has been a hot topic. Up until 2002, for those who don't know, New York City schools were governed by 32 different community boards and a citywide board of education. Now, Mayor Bloomberg changed all that, and it went under mayoral control. You have said that you want to take away mayoral control, but also want to hold responsibility and be at fault if there's something were to go wrong. The question is, who runs the school system then?
What I've said time and again is we cannot go back to what existed before mayoral control. The reason that I remain opposed to mayoral control is because of a critique of how it keeps many parents, students, and teachers out of a lot of the process of decision-making about their lives. And what I've heard from these same parents and students and teachers is they'll come to forums, they'll testify for hours on end, and the decision was actually made weeks, if not months ago. How do we create a system that brings more of their involvement into the decision-making, into the feedback that's being provided? And the reason I've said that I would still look to be accountable is because I'm the mayor of this city.
Yeah.
That means New Yorkers should know that whatever happens in this city, if it's city government that's involved, the mayor has to answer for it at some level. It's possible, however, to build a system that has more involvement of the people it's looking to serve as well.
But what does that look like?
That's exactly what we're in the process of building out past this election before January 1st.
Okay, so if you were to win the election, how soon does that take over before mayoral control goes away?
Well, this is something that would be up for debate in Albany for the extension of mayoral control, and by that point would be putting forward our vision of how to increase participation for parents and students and teachers.
Right, and so you've been hit on the fact that it's not a clear vision yet. Is it still being, in transparency, is it still being worked out and flushed out, and that's why you don't have it?
Yes, and I think I'm always looking to be honest with New Yorkers. I know there are answers that are easier to give, but it's important to actually share that the stakes of these things are such that you want to make sure that you're sure when you're laying out any one of these proposals.
So what's your message to a parent right now saying, well, I would like mayoral control to stay, or what is going to happen to my child? Who's going to be in charge of them post January 1?
Well, we're going to continue to have a chancellor of a school system that will actually be leading that school system. And what I say to that parent is that what the school system they have to deal with right now is one that's not delivering on the excellence that should be required. And that's not just a question of mayoral control. It's also a question of funding for those schools, class size reduction within those schools, and the need to hire more teachers for those schools.
And more with Mr. Mamdani when we come back.
You're watching PIX on Politics with Dan Mannarino. Race for New York City Mayor.
On the free bus proposal, it's part of your signature plan, but speaking about the MTA, it's really a state issue. Should the MTA be run by the city?
I think that what we need to actually do is work with the state to deliver for the MTA. Right? We had Andrew Cuomo running the MTA when he was running the state. We saw what happened.
Yeah.
The summer of hell, 2017, he defunded the MTA to fund upstate ski resorts. Now he wants to bring that to New York City. This is a distraction from the question of how will we actually deliver for New Yorkers. The reason I've said we have to make buses not only fast but also free is that 1 in 5 New Yorkers can't afford the fare today.
Yeah.
That's at $2.90. It's going to become $3 not too soon, not too far from now. And it's time that we make sure that public transit, especially for those looking to go across boroughs, is something that they can actually afford.
Right, but should the city have more of a say in the MTA? Should they have either full responsibility or partial responsibility?
I think that the governance structure as it is fine. The issue is who is it serving and is it being held to the standard it needs to be. I'm looking forward to working with Governor Hochul to actually deliver for that MTA, not have to see Andrew Cuomo run it into the ground again.
Yeah, now I've heard from a number of New Yorkers who say, I like the idea of a free bus, but I take the subway. I've never taken a bus as a New Yorker. So would you want to change maybe the subway system as well? Could that be free for either, if not everybody, some people?
My focus is on making buses free. I have also said, however, that it's important to increase fares because that is something that would apply not only to buses but subways and also actually reach out to more New Yorkers than are currently eligible.
Yeah, why do you see the bus as the main challenge for New Yorkers?
Well, I think there are a few things. The first thing is the ridership of the bus is disproportionately working class. And the second thing is that the collection of fare, unlike the subway, it actually impedes the service of the bus. When you are going to use the subway, you'll swipe your MetroCard or your Omni before you get on the train. When you're doing it on the bus, you're doing it as you get on the bus. So when you eliminate fare collection, you make the bus faster because you remove that part of the interaction. The second piece here is that fare collection and assaults on bus operators, we've seen the relationship between those things. And when we eliminated the fare with one bus route in each one of the 5 boroughs, and I won that with Deputy Majority Leader Mike Gianaris, we saw a drop in assaults on bus operators by 38.9%. These are the critical things that bring the bus first and foremost.
All right, Mr. Mamdani, I'm giving everybody equal time. It was great to have you here.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.
All right, and we'll be right back, everybody. And this is it, everybody. The home stretch of the election. Early voting begins on Saturday, and I want to thank all the mayoral candidates for sitting down with me for these extensive interviews and giving the voters important information as they head to the ballots. You can see all the interviews online at PIX11.com and streaming on PIX11 Plus. And again, early voting begins October 25th, which is also the last day to register to vote. Election night, the all-important day of November 4th. And next week on Picks and Politics, you can get a complete preview of all the major races in our area ahead of our special election night coverage on Tuesday night. And with all of that, I'm Dan Mannarino. We'll see you next time. Enjoy the rest of your day.